Hey everyone, this is Kai from WCC, and today we'll be looking at the standard tier list. Now, we haven't done one of these in a while, so we'll be looking at the current standard tier list, and we'll be looking at the post-Infinideity cradle tier list as well. So we've categorized the tier list into 3 tiers. There's a top tier, pretty self-explanatory decks, just the best decks in the current format. They have a lot of great gimmicks, got a good package going for them, so top decks. Good tier is just a bunch of competitive decks that are just short of being on top. Their gimmick is either not as good or they're not as consistent, and they're just split into 2 rows as well. Top row is slightly better than the bottom row. And then we've got the rogue and potential tier. These are just less consistent decks that either randomly show up or they have good potential, and someone just hasn't really pushed it as far. Potential tier is just like, wow, this is a pretty decent deck, I think. It should do pretty well in the meta, but we'll see. We'll see. So I'll go through each of the decks pretty quickly, but I'll just stop on the ones that are more interesting to talk about. And this tier list is not just based, not 100% based on results. It's based on my insight as well. So if you want a fully 100% results-based tier list, just go to Vanguard's site and look up the deck recipes, or go to Facebook and there's a bunch of results that have been posted for the seasons and for some of the future seasons as well. So let's go straight into the tier list. The current tier list we have in the top tier, we've got Hyuga, pretty self-explanatory. Hits big, hits hard, has a field wipe, does kind of decent attacks because it's Excel. Doesn't even have Miyamaru yet, and it's already doing so well. So Hyuga, easy top tier. Luquir as well, hits big, hits hard, draws a bunch of cards. Nice gimmick that just sucks in the entire soul, so retire clans don't work against it. Interesting with this is that a lot of people have moved away from running countercharge engines with Luquir and have gone more for a turbo soul charge build. One thing with standard is that running countercharge cards is kind of like a crutch that you don't want to rely on, especially if the countercharge card itself is not that great. A perfect example will be Oracle Guardian Gemini, where all it does is countercharge. It's taking up a slot in your deck that could be used for something else. A good countercharge card is something like Airmo, right? Where it does, when you retire a card, you get to draw one, so it's like a filter. And then it also gets a nice power boost that will let you hit over power lines sometimes, which makes it a pretty decent card in the overall scheme of things. And just the countercharge is like this nice bonus. So the Pale Moon ones aren't really good. Knife Juggler and Chimera kind of conflict with your overall strategy. So running the turbo, running Brassy Bunny to turbo through your deck, or other cards like that, just make the deck overall better. You just learn to play without needing that countercharge. So overall, that is where Luquir is at. Pretty good, one of the top tier decks. And lastly, in top tier, we have Tachikaze. Now, a lot of people look at Tachikaze and go, wow, this deck is really inconsistent. It only runs 4 grade 3s. Now, that doesn't actually really matter. When you play Tachikaze, you realize, wow, you go through a lot of your deck, you have a lot of draw with Mega Rex, you have Laceratrex where you can put stuff under it and then just salvage it back. So it's pretty decent in that respect. And then even if you just don't get your grade 3 by then, you still have a V-Assist to rely on, because those 2 cards don't really matter if your opponent is dead. And that is what Tachikaze is really good at doing. With just 1 counterblast, you can do 7 attacks when it rides up to grade 3. So absolutely devastating. And on top of that, it field wipe your opponent as well. So even though your opponent might survive you, their next turn they have nothing on the field, they probably have very little hand, they can't really counterattack much at all. So not a lot of ways that you can deal with Tachikaze. If you decide to damage deny them or play the game really slow, they can still pump up a giant super Acro Canto and then just bash you in the face with that. Just restand that as well. So overall, it's great, but you'll see that a lot of these decks that I've put in these categories have a lot of field wipes to just deal with Tachikaze as well. So Tachikaze, you'll find against a lot of these decks that you'll see right now, maybe not amazing. It can still win pretty consistently, but then against the rest of the field, it's pretty good. Moving on to the good tier, we have Narukami. Now, a lot of people wonder why Narukami is still here. It's such an old clan. Why is it still here? I don't rate Narukami that much. A lot of people don't rate Narukami that much too. It has some really diehard followers, but the reality is that it's more in between. Narukami does have a field wipe. That's pretty much it. And the field wipes and the removal that it has doesn't really target, so it's automatically really good against Tachikaze. If your opponent doesn't, like against Excels as well, field wipe is really amazing. A Gauntlet Buster will get a bunch of crits. If they don't have a null, they're just dead. Hyuga doesn't like field wipes. Aquaforce doesn't like field wipes. Tachikaze doesn't like field wipes. So overall, Narukami is just still there because it just makes Blaster Darks disappear forever. Your worst matchup is just Pale Moon. But that's about it. That's about it. Shadow Paladin, best force deck, pretty much still. Pretty much the best force deck still. Restance, Blaster Darks, enough said, right? Just against, it's like an Excel meta now where even Excel has field wipes as well. So yeah, that's why it's only in good tier. Otherwise, it'll probably have moved on to top tier. But unfortunately, the times have passed. Shadow's still a good deck, but not the best deck. Dark Irregulars and Mega Colony. What are they doing here? Protect's in a pretty bad state. Just look at the amount of Excel clans that are just around, right? You got Murakumo, look here. And, like, so hard being Protect right now because Bushido probably went, why? OT2 was so good at the beginning. So we've got to really nerf down those Protect decks. The reason why these two Protect decks are still here is because they were released last. But more seriously is that Brufus is that good. He gets a crit, control the field. You NLK into a Brufus, you can kind of just one-shot random Excel decks. So, yeah, Brufus is just that good. Compressor your deck, gets crits, can get even more crits, and can just come from behind when it survives. Because Protect does get extra null, so it can kind of survive big plays, and then it can kind of counterattack. Mega Colony randomly steals games. Steals games. That is pretty much it. Draws a bunch of cards, and then just steals games. Very Mafia-like. One thing with Protect is that these two decks are really, really good against Force Clans, and the large majority of the entire game is Force Clans. So, although the top decks right now are still Excel, you're going to go to a tournament and still face a bunch of Force Clans as well. So, that's why they're still in the good tier. And lastly, we've got Spike Brothers. Really, really nice grade 3s. You don't really know what the Spike Brother deck will do until you start playing it. They can throw around their Force 2 markers. They can pump up huge columns and just bash you in the face. Or they just, surprise bro, we've got Banner Dragon retire. Unlucky for you, your Sweeper Akakano is not on Excel circle, so that's dead. Unfortunate, right? So it has control. It's got a bit of everything. And unlike before, it's really fast now. It gains power really fast. So you can close out games really quickly, and that's always good. That's always good. You don't have to really commit a full field as well to do what you need to do. And then onto the Rogue and Potential tier. We always see an Aquaforce. Randomly an Aquaforce because Glory Maelstrom's a thing. So Glory Maelstrom is one of those decks that just steal games as well. So that's why it's there. And then lastly we have Kagura. Why do we have Kagura? What has Kagura done recently? Not much, but I'll tell you what. It's got a field wipe with Blade Master, and it's also got another field wipe as well. It's called Kimnara, right? So against Tachikaze, I think you might have seen that picture about that reality climax where Kimnara just destroys Sweeper Akakano. And the amount of Excel clans right now means Kimnara is actually not a bad tech on top of your Blade Master. You've got lots of field wipe potential right there, and then your secondary grade 3 can be anything you want. It can be the grade or waterfall. Up to you. But I think Kimnara, pretty good tech right now, especially in this Excel-dominated format. And it's only going to get better from here, because let's move on to the post-Infinideity format, right? Now, here are the big changes. Let's start from the top tier first. You see, Murakumo has somehow moved up a bit, because it gets Miyamaru. And although Miyamaru is going to be such an expensive card, once it gets Miyamaru, the deck gets even better, alright? The power lines get more ridiculous, and you wonder why Murakumo is like this. Why is Murakumo always meta? They had Zanbaku before, and now they have Hyuga. And yeah, so Murakumo is easily the toppest deck out of the top tier, but only slightly against, like, for the Pale Moon Murakumo matchup. Before it was kind of even. Now it's just slightly better for Murakumo, simply because of the Miyamaru just making everything amazing. Other things in good tier that's pop up is Nubatama. Nubatama actually is, I really like the new Nubatama, right? Jamio Kongo with Hanzo means that your opponent's hand is always low, and that means you can always kill your opponent. Unlike before, where you either had to just wombo combo them with the Crow and Kujikiri Kongo, or just hope they never had a big hand. But now it just doesn't matter how big their hand is or how they play. You play against a guy who draws a lot of cards, jam your Congo, done. You play a guy who has no hand and then drops his field, Hanzo, done. They're dead. Great. I think against Pale Moon, it's a pretty good matchup because anything they do, it just feels awful. The only weakness with Hanzo is that the pseudo field wipe it has is not great against Tachikaze because a lot of their it chooses. So those super aggro candles just stay on the field and you can't do much. And personally, they don't have a big hand as well, so your jamming doesn't do much and you just kind of keel over and probably die. So unfortunately for that, Tachikaze in the game, but there's a lot of other clans you're good against too. Nova Grappler, God Hand is a new thing. God Hand is kind of like Tachikaze Light. I personally don't really like God Hand that much, so I put it in like kind of a lower good tier mode. A lot of the new God Hand decks only run 4 grade 3s, so similar to Tachikaze in a way, but they actually have a grade 3 Searcher, which is alright. And worse over, you still have your V-Assist, so you can usually always get your God Hand. The one thing I don't like about God Hand is it doesn't really get 7 attacks. So on the first ride of grade 3, unless you have like 2 Kick Typhoons to do more multi-attacks, you're only really doing 4 attacks. And although some of your cards do get crits, you can... They know what to guard, right? They know what to guard. Unless they just have 0 nulls, or they just have 0 cards in hand that are any good, they're going to null the crits. And then if they get a trigger as well, that's going to help them out too. So they are more likely surviving your first grade 3 ride, unless you go first and just absolutely destroy them. And then a lot of the clans now, they do have removal. So God Hand doesn't really want to commit that much cards early in fear of you just dying, but they kind of have to. So it's kind of this weird thing where it's similar to Aqua Force, where they're going to YOLO 1 turn, and then after that, they kind of taper up, or they hope they've done enough damage that they can just randomly kill you from there. But the other thing that I don't like about God Hand is a lot of decks just don't run the crits anymore. And that's technically correct, because if you trigger a crit with God Hand, you just feel bad. So you're kind of forced to run 8 fronts, and although you can confirm the fronts, you don't get any advantage as well. So after your field is gone, that's it. And that's why Narukami is still in good tier, because hey, more decks to bind and destroy, right? So God Hand is in this kind of good tier, but not that god tier kind of thing. And then last one of the new other clans is Genesis, right? And that's in the Rogue potential deck. I find Genesis pretty funny. You get your grade 5 and bam, you either randomly win or you just randomly don't do anything. I've had games where I call Valkyrion, look at my 5 and go, wow, there's like 4 zeros and a 1. So it looks like I get 1 extra drive check and I just feel absolutely awful. Getting the 5 force markers is not hard at all, but kind of closing out games is a bit difficult because your opponent also knows what your deck does. It's not going to just like sit there and let you deal damage to them early and just randomly die from there. Pretty much just a lot of games just come down to like crit to win, or like I didn't draw any nulls and I've lost kind of thing. So Genesis in that nice rogue deck, less consistent but still kind of threatening because it's new, it gets lots of power, and that's it. You still have to draw your Valkyrion. If you don't, your deck is pretty meh. You do have ways to search your Valkyrion though, but again, nothing's confirmed with that deck, so that's why it's still there. Kagura's still there because now you've got a Nova Grappler. Kimnara is also pretty good. More field wide potential for you. And then Dark Hero is dropped because compared to Mega Colony draws a lot more cards than Dark Irregulars. So it can kind of more confirm surviving first turn against God Hand, and then just still randomly steal games. Dark Irregulars kind of doesn't draw as much, but it still has that killing potential. So that's why I just dropped it down a bit. But it's still it's one of the best Protect decks out there. But now you have Nubatama, so unfortunately it's not. It's like the 3rd best Protect deck. So keep on forgetting Nubatama is a Protect deck. Yeah, so Dark Irregulars dropped down a tier, but it's still kind of threatening because you still have NLK, you still have Brewfist, so don't discount it. Otherwise, that's pretty much all the movements for post Infinideity. You've realized that I didn't include Angel Feather because sucks to be Angel Feather. That's what I'm gonna say. So yeah, if your deck wasn't in these top 3 or these 3 categories, don't feel bad. Stick with it. They're gonna get more support soon. Great Nature is gonna get good again. So hope you guys like this video. We'll talk more about tier lists in the future. And there's a lot more to talk about. So much stuff is happening in Vanguard, and Worlds is coming up soon. So, yeah, it's great. Maybe we'll do a premium tier list. So, keep your eyes peeled out for that, or maybe not. We'll see. See you guys in the next video. Bye.